Okay, now we're gonna do this scoreboard method. This I call it scoreboard method because when we watch scores, we can see who wins, right? Let's say for example, we have a game. I'd say I'm watching soccer, and then let's say I have PSG versus Barcelona. Okay, so PSG, and then there's Barcelona. So I'm gonna have these two teams played, and then my scoreboard at the end, the score. Let's say PSG scored 3 goals, but then Barcelona scores 5. You guys can tell I'm a Barcelona fan. Okay, so Barcelona scores 5 goals. Then I ask you who won by how much. So very, very important. On the scoreboard, we want to know who won by how much. So we're gonna say Barcelona, because we first of all we want to say who won, and then by how much. I'm gonna subtract the two numbers, 5 - 3. So I'm gonna say Barcelona by 2. This is basically what we're going to be doing. I'm gonna have a match. I'm gonna be having positives and negatives. So I'm not gonna have real names of teams. I'm gonna have positives and negatives. And my question is, who won by how much? So we're gonna be adding and subtracting using this scoreboard method. But I'm gonna have games. I'm not gonna say this is really a soccer game, a basketball game, or anything. I'm just gonna say we're having a game in between the positives and the negatives. Okay, so let's take a look. I'm just showing you guys a cool way how to add and subtract. So a different way. I'm pretty sure this one you guys haven't seen because this one I invented. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, let me write my numbers without parentheses. So we see some numbers in here are surrounded by a parentheses. But one thing though, when the two signs are next to each other, so I'm looking at this signs, when the signs are different, that means one of them's a plus, one of them's a minus. When my signs are different, I'm gonna write that as a minus. When my signs are the same, let me highlight this in blue. When my signs are the same, so two negative signs or two positive signs, when my signs are the same, I'm gonna write that as a plus. So let me write this as 5 - 1. Remember I said when the signs are different, write it as a minus, plus 5, because remember I said when the two signs are the same, write in the same. Write them as a plus. So plus 5 and then -3. Again, what I wanted to do, I just wanted to write everything without parentheses. Then I'm gonna do a little chart here. I'm gonna say the pluses and the negatives. So I have a game. I'm gonna separate my values now, positives and negatives, because the positive score some points, the negative score some points. So I want to see how many points each of them scored. So my first number is a +5. So let me put it with the positives. And then a -1. So let me put it with the negatives. And then a +5, and then a -3. So the positives, I put it with the positives, the negatives, I put it in the negatives. Because I'm looking at this as I'm watching a game. So altogether, so let me close this. Altogether, the positives have 10 points, right? I just added the points the positives had. So 5 + 5. So the positives had 10 points. The negatives had 4 points, right? Because 1 and 3, 1 + 3 is 4. So again, notice how I separated positives, I separated negatives. I added the positives, I added the negatives. So now I'm looking at this. If I'm watching a game, positive scored 10 points, negative scored 4. My question is, who won by how much? Well, positive scored more points, so the positives won by 6. So my answer here is going to be +6. Remember how I have to subtract 10 and 4. I have to subtract those two numbers because my question is, who won by how much? And for me to know by how much, I subtract the two values given. All right, let's take a look at another example. Notice how my answer, when it's positive, you don't have to write the plus sign. It's just a positive number. So now let's take a look at question number 6. Let me write everything without parentheses. So I'm going to write 4 + 2. My plus, because I see my two signs here. They're both the same sign. So I write it as a plus. And then -7. I look at the signs here. They're different. Remember, when the signs are different, I write it as a minus. When the signs are the same, I write it as a plus. And then -2. I'm going to do my little chart here. I'm going to separate positives and negatives. My first number is +4. So it goes with the positives. My second number is positive 2. So it goes positive. My third number is negative 7. So it goes with the negatives. And then negative 2, it goes with the negatives. Let me do a separation here. I'm going to do here. When I add my positives, 4 and 2, when I add those two numbers, it gives me 6. So the positive scores 6 points. My negative, 7 and 2, when I add those numbers, gives me 9. So I'm looking at the scoreboard. The final score was 6-9. My question is, who won? In this case, I'm going to say the negatives. Sign is very, very important. So when I say who won, all right, the negative score more points, so the negatives won. By how much? What's the difference between 9 and 6? Subtract those numbers. So I'm going to call this 3. My answer in this case is a negative 3. Let's take a look at another example. Oops. Let me take a look at another example. Question number 7. Let me rewrite everything without parentheses. So this one is a negative 4. It's just a negative by itself, just one sign. So negative 4 minus 3 plus 4. Okay, now this is plus because look, my two signs are the same. And then minus 8. So I'm going to separate this, positives and negatives. First number is negative, so negative 4, negative 3, positive 4, and then negative 8. All I did separated positives with negatives. Let me do a little box right here. Positives only have 4 points. Negatives, they have 4 plus 3 plus 8. So 4 plus 3 is 7, and 7 plus 8 is 15. I'm just adding all my numbers. So I see my final score is 4-15. Okay, so who won? Well, obviously in this case, the negatives, they have more points. By how much? Subtract these numbers. 15 minus 4, it's 11. So my answer is negative 11. Cool. Let's take a look at one more example here. Let me write everything without parentheses. So minus 4 minus 3 plus 5 minus 5. Let me separate the positives and the negatives. So negative 4, negative 3, positive 5, negative 5. Okay, so positives, there's only 5. Negatives, add all those. So 4 plus 3 plus 5, that gives me 12. So again, this one, the negatives won again because they score more points. By how much? So subtract that. 12 minus 5 is 7. So negative 7. Question is, who won by how much? Now, some cases in your homework, you're going to run into a tie. Some cases you're going to run into a tie. The negatives and the positives score the same amount of points. So it's a tie. When that happens, so if you do run into a tie, the answer is 0. Right? Nobody won. My question here again, I'm asking who won by how much? If it is a tie, my answer will be 0.